TV Tropes defines the Stepford Smiler as someone obsessed with projecting the image of wholesome happiness in order to be accepted by their peers. Tragically enough, they'd probably be accepted for who they are regardless of this self-imposed masquerade. While this character archetype is nothing really new to Precure, it is one worth using more than once when you consider the target demographic. Had the main character of this show exhibited more of this archetype, then I'd actually have a much higher opinion of this show overall. Sadly, I don't really see that as being the case. Out of the blue, Ichika's mother, Satomi, returns to Japan. And rather than at least giving her husband a proper greeting and kiss hello, she ignores the poor guy and goes straight for her daughter. Jeez, I never thought I'd feel this bad for a guy voiced by Seto Kaiba. Ichika is rightfully happy to see her mother after such a long time, and is close to tears because of it, but for some reason, she doesn't cry. Huh. Well, anyway, as it turns out, Satomi was only making a brief stopover in Japan before departing for her next job. Still, she did at least have some time to spend with her family, and during their outing, Satomi offers to bake a cake for her daughter. This ends up reminding Ichika of the cake she tried to make for her mother all the way back in episode 1, and for some reason, this memory causes her to make this face. Darn it, I don't have any more space left in the Nightmare Face folder. Guess I have to go out and buy a new one. Should have pushed back on the Deluxe 2 review. Anyway, rather than letting her mother bake a cake for her, Ichika offers to bake one for her mother before she leaves. However, in spite of baking dozens of cakes at this point, baking this one proves to be a real challenge. The fairies say it's because her cakes lack Kirakira. However, from a more practical standpoint, I'd say it has more to do with the fact that she can't concentrate on her baking because she's been trying to maintain a brave face the whole time her mother's been in town, in spite of knowing that she'll have to say goodbye to her for the umpteenth time. This harpers back to what I brought up at the beginning of this video, as I think that's what they're trying to do with Ichika's character here. Earlier in the episode, we learned that growing up, Satomi taught Ichika the value of smiling even in the face of hardship. Now on paper, that sounds like a good moral to teach a child, but in the end, all it's really going to do is block off an important part of their emotional spectrum. Now, if this had been a part of Ichika's character from the beginning, it actually might have made her a fairly well nuanced and interesting character. The problem here, and why I think it doesn't really work for Ichika, is because we are 31 episodes in, and we've hardly seen this side of her up until now. I mean, we kind of saw it back in episode 17, when Giulio pointed it out. Yeah, up until now, we haven't seen much of Ichika herself express many emotions outside of being happy-go-lucky. I think this episode is trying to justify that lack of range by going with this whole Stepford Smiler direction, but in the end, it doesn't really work since there was little build-up to such revelations. As a result, it feels more like they're just pinning on this new trait onto Ichika's ill-defined character. And really, I think that's what makes Ichika Usami one of the more divisive Precure leads ever. She feels like a blank slate who from week to week just acts the way the story needs her to act. Ironically, the best way I could describe Ichika's character arc is being like that of a poorly decorated cake. A few individual slices of it, like this episode, look really nice, making it really hard to criticize it because it's good stuff with a lot of layers. But then you look at the rest of the cake and realize its overall quality lacks a real consistency. Anyway, Ichika confesses her feelings to her mother and is finally able to cry in front of her. Again, this scene is actually good stuff, just hampered by everything I just went over. Ichika does eventually bake a proper cake for her just before she has to leave for the airport. She then tries to escort her mother there, only for Dewey to call with no real build-up. Kind of a running theme in this episode, really. And they have a quick and mostly pointless fight with Grave. Worst part about this week's fight is that we really didn't get to see much of Grave's minions just being cute and funny. I love these little guys, come on! Anyway, during the fight, Ichika's orb transforms into the final animal crystal, and the episode ends with Noir giving new powers to Bipley, who, unlike our lead, has somewhat redeemed her lackluster character in recent episodes, so I at least have something to look forward to next week. Alright, so if I were to look at this episode in a bubble, ignoring everything that's happened previously, I'd say, other than the throwaway fight, this was a really good episode. Ichika's interactions with her mother were honestly heartwarming, and yet had an air of tragedy to them as seen through mostly just some melancholic expressions on both of their faces. I always appreciate good visual storytelling like this. Unfortunately, as much as I want to be an optimist, we can't ignore the fact that this is episode 31, and Ichika's character arc up until now has been very inconsistent. Again, it just feels like her character is whatever the writers need her to be for the week, whether it be a modest, emotionally sensitive girl one week, or a complete glory hound the next. It's hard to get emotionally invested in this girl when we really don't have a solid grasp on who she is as a person. Worst part about all of this is that it didn't have to be like this. Ichika in episode 1 expressed a good emotional range, and in hindsight, I could see a connection form between that Ichika and Ichika of this episode. Hell, they could have had most of the events of this episode play out much earlier in the season, not unlike her contemporaries. Endear us to her character early on so that we could overlook some of her flaws later. Sadly, neither of these came to pass. Whether it be because of a lack of direction or poor planning, Ichika Usami is just such a hard character to get behind. When she's being overshadowed by 6 rangers and villains, it's hard not to see the flaws in this cake's design. If you haven't seen it yet, I just posted up my review of Hardcatch Precure's solo film, and at the end of it, I even threw in a not so subtle hint about what I'm going to be covering next. Check it out, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and... Oh! Hi guys, what's up? Sure, I'm up for that. In fact, you know what? Let me just call in a few of my other friends and we can all join together. Oh yeah, they're real nice guys. Just be sure not to touch them. You might disintegrate. Fair warning.